From Rule 62 Studios, we're in Bossier City, Louisiana, and this is the Grouch and the Brainstorm. Welcome back. This is Season 2, episode... Help me out, guys.
53?
53. Season 2.
Really?
Yeah. Season 2, episode... Yeah.
Damn, it took y'all that long to get me here?
We don't even know what episode we're on. We're on season 2 and probably 2 or 3 episodes into it. So look at the title and you'll see what episode we're in because by then I'll have figured it out. I'm Mike and here today for another episode of the show. I got with me Jill.
Hey, guys.
We got Matt.
All right.
And we have a guest. His name is Cal.
Very special.
Koala Club Hall of Famer Cal.
Legend, the man, the myth, the legend.
And a lot going on since the last time we recorded. We have had 3 losses. I have had 3 losses in my recovery. You know, we lost Daryl at the Koala Club, longtime fixture there, 20-plus year guy in recovery. We lost James C. Guy, been at the Koala Club since the day it opened. I think he actually one of the guys that actually helped open it in the beginning, and we lost one of our listeners down in South Louisiana. Her name was Bree, and she passed away all of a sudden, and she is going to be missed as well. And anytime we have this kind of loss, or anytime we have a loss at all, there's always a void somewhere in there, and just like with any void, it's going to be filled with what's right next to it. Whether it's a void in the ground, going to be filled with water, or a void in life that's going to be filled by whatever we surround ourselves with. And I know that for me anyway, that all of the phone calls and people who are saying, hey, you know, we want you to know, we want you to be a part of it, you know, all of that love and that help really came through. And, you know, great people, going to miss all of them, right? And none of them more than the other, you know? They're just a lot of good people. So anyway... Oh, man, what else? Oh, I want to do something before I forget about it, and I'm going to forget about it. I never do a plug for anything, right? Mm-hmm. Never. And I am going to do a plug for a show on Netflix. Yeah, there is a show on Netflix, and I had to search it, and my son, who is also one of us, right, he had to find it. He found it. He told me about it, and so I ended up watching it. I was actually snowed in for 2 days, or iced in over in Texas. Couldn't get out the house. And so while I was there, I watched every episode of the show. It's called Louder Milk.
I knew you were going to say that.
The show is called, have you seen it?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
What is it called?
Louder Milk. And I don't know the starring actor's name. He's been in other stuff.
Livingston or something. He's a nut.
He's a nut. And the show is it's a knockoff of AA.
Yes, it is.
But it shows though the setting of it is they're in a group setting, you know, and a buddy of mine actually he's not one of us. He asked me, he's like, "Do y'all really sit around in a circle in chairs like that?" And I was like, "Dude, I've never been to a meeting like that. I'm sure they have them,
I've been to some.
but I've never been."
Yeah, it's more like a small group setting.
Yeah, I've been in some places.
Brian Regan is in this show.
I know who that is.
He's a comedian. I've never seen his comical act done with anything other than good, clean fun.
Right.
Everybody can. But in this show, he actually he throws some words out there.
Is that his roommate?
No, that Brian Regan was actually the guy they called Butchie or the guy with the 2 daughters that.
Oh, okay. I know who he is now.
His name is Brian Regan. He's a very funny comedian. But the plug is for Louder Milk. Just a wonderful show.
It really focuses, I feel like, on the irritable, restless, and discontented people in recovery.
It focuses on when you're in a group setting and you just sit there and then all of a sudden you get up and you go out into drama.
Yeah.
And what happens, and some of these things are real life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it for anybody that's actually going to watch it. If you're not going to watch it, reach out to me. I'll tell you some of the good stuff about it. But the show is called Louder Milk. There's 3 seasons, 10 shows in each season, 30 shows, 43 minutes a show. You do the math. It's a good day's worth of, maybe 2 days worth of watching. And
nice.
I so before we get to the topic of the day, I had somebody reach out to me and asked me, and I got to pull up my page here, but they asked me, what do, and first off, for lack of better terms, I am not a Catholic, okay? I've been to Catholic church many times. Okay, for years, both of my children were raised Catholic. Okay, I am not a convert to Catholicism, but someone reached out to me and says, "What do Catholics do about communion?" Right? They wanted to know. Hey, put it out there on the air. Let's see what kind of feedback we get. Maybe one day you can have a Catholic come in. I don't know. I reached out to a practicing member of Alcoholics Anonymous who is also a practicing Catholic. Okay. With some recovery time, because I'm just curious. So far, I've gotten one answer from someone very well respected, okay? Very well respected. But what do Catholics do to recognize communion, okay? And this particular person told me that it is up to the individual, okay? I would visit with a sponsor on that before I made any individual decisions, but it's up to the individual. Some whose drug of choice may have been wine, okay? Might not want to partake in that at all, in the blood part of communion. And then some whose drug of choice, let's just say, may have been vodka. Okay, because this particular person said, "Hey, I do know someone that does do communion. Their drug of choice was vodka. They only take a slight sip of the actual wine in ceremonious fashion, right?" And so. That is, of course, this is not, we give advice on the show. We don't do that, but someone reached out, so I reached out. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I'm thinking we might get a little more feedback because we don't know who our listeners are. They're Catholic and who are not Catholic.
Can they not just not drink it?
Yeah. What you're discussing, right? It shows my ignorance because I really thought that was grape juice. That's what I thought.
In Baptist and
in some churches, Cal, you are absolutely right because I used to, I run grocery stores for a living, and used to the parishioners would come in on Sunday morning and buy a bunch of that fancy grape juice, and that's what they would use. However, I do remember going to the Catholic Church, and I would have to skip communion because I never converted. But boy, it smelled good.
Yeah.
Oh, easy.
But I can see what you, because it's like a gateway to drink it again.
I mean, yeah, so I can see where the question would arise. Especially someone. Let's think about someone who's trying to get sober. They're Catholic, but they still want to partake in their ceremonious.
And I'm nobody, and I'm not a religious dude, and I don't know all this stuff. But at the end of the day, for me, in a situation like this, I think God knows your heart.
Yeah.
So, hey, I love you, but I don't need to drink this. I think, end of the day, that's.
Well, one of the things this person I called did tell me was that when you partake in the bread, you actually partake in the blood and the body. And when you partake in the wine, you actually partake in the blood and the body. So they're saying that for them, okay, just for them and their belief, that if they take the bread at communion, that covers all the bases.
Yeah. Right? But I also see, so what Matt is talking about too, like we understand God, he knows your heart. But me, if I'm seeking out this way of life, a way of living, like as a new lifestyle, I would think every time I do that, I'm breaking my sobriety.
I would. Yeah.
So
I'm with you.
Get that out of your mind.
Well, can you just go to the pastor and just be like, "Hey, there's something I'm struggling with."
Yeah, I mean that would be
some type of modification.
Pastor or your,
priest or whatever.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
I don't know all the terminology.
Yeah,
but. Right,
but and there's a lot of counsel out there. We're definitely not the where it stops.
No, do not come to me.
I have a whole bunch of drunk people at the noon meeting today.
Yeah, by no means should you listen to my advice. So,
but I wanted to just throw that out there, and we have Colombia and the Netherlands added to our countries of where people listen to us.
Colombia, Louisiana,
Colombia, South America.
Oh, South America.
Yeah, we have listeners in Ireland, United Kingdom, Taiwan, Bulgaria, Australia, Denmark, Saudi Arabia, Canada, the UAE, Colombia, and the Netherlands.
Wow. What if it was, what's his name down in Colombia? I'm sorry.
The Medellin. And we are now actually streamed. 26.3% of our shows are now streamed on Apple Podcasts, as opposed to it used to be 98% was on Spotify. Now it's 71.2 on Spotify and 26.3 on Apple, and then other, I don't know what other is 2.6.
Okay.
So just a few, and we have 97 followers, on Spotify. We need 3 more. So next time you buy a box of Girl Scout cookies, give them the little thing saying, hey, look, I bought your cookies. I need y'all to follow my show on Spotify.
Their moms will be like, what the hell are you listening to?
And we don't benefit from that. So anyway, I wanted to cover all that stuff before I forgot it because my brain doesn't work quite like it used to. And we're going to, today our topic is going to be, let's see, autonomy, anonymity, and 12 other words that are hard to pronounce. Autonomy, anonymity, and tradition 4. And I guess we can start it off by looking at tradition 4. Everybody good with that?
Sure. Yes, please.
And let's look at tradition 4 from the 12 steps and 12 traditions. And it says, each group should be autonomous, except in matters affecting the other groups or AA as a whole. So, Matt, I know you're studying.
I'm still reading.
Well, let's first start with autonomy. A lot of people don't know what that means.
Well, they call it a $10 word here.
It is to do things on your own.
Yep.
That's what autonomous means.
So if I gave you the autonomy to run the show.
Please don't.
No, I'm just saying.
Who?
Jill.
Oh, I thought you said something else.
I thought
No.
you already did that.
I don't know, Jill. The autonomy, $10 word.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
To do
things-
something on your own.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, AA in this tradition is giving the groups full autonomy, okay, to do their own thing.
Yeah. To run the group how they
So,
want.
this is kind of like being self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Each group has to be self-sufficient. So each group makes their own rules. Mm-hmm. So let's just say the 5 group has a problem with Matt. They don't go to the club. They don't go to the koala club. Right? They settle it on their own.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, dealing with it internally. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. So that's autonomy. But how does it let's think about it. That's how it plays out in the group / AA, central office setting. Because obviously no one's going to write a letter to central office
About
and say, hey, Matt's been mean to me.
Yeah. Sure.
And if they did, what do they do with these letters at the central office?
And if you're around long enough in this program, you're going to have personality clashes. You're going to have issues because it's people at the end of the day, and everybody's not perfect. And I'll speak on mine. I've had a couple of things over the years, and it became, you get your sponsor, I get my sponsor, we go sit in a room. And actually in the one I was in that this came to this, we had 2 old timers as well, and everybody hugged, we shook hands, and have never had a problem since then, and we cleared the air.
Wow.
It worked really great.
Is this the lady that was taking your lunch money?
Don't talk about my love life on the show, Mike. She was the ladies is a whole other. No, I'm playing. Yeah, and I mean this was a couple of years ago, but yeah, we handled it as a group, and for the most part, it came out the way it's supposed to, and I really liked that. The resentments died off. There was no carrying resentments around or pissed off at each other. It was none of that.
Well, it was mature. I like that because a lot of us, that's what we were quite the opposite, back in our using and.
Sure. And I do later on in the show. I want to hit on something, nothing individual, but I want to talk about drama for a little bit.
Okay.
Please don't.
Cal and I are like,
I'm not going to bring up specifics.
No, I know.
Actually, for the newcomer, that drama can be detrimental.
yeah, off-putting.
Absolutely.
And and we'll talk about that later. It's just that I asked about somebody the other day, hadn't seen in a long time, and I don't live here, right? So I live way off, and when it came down to it, it sounded to me like some drama had caused someone not come back to a meeting. And so we don't talk about, we're not going to individualize that, but drama in general. But anyway, keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, no, that was kind of the deal, and it's also, when you get into this program, you got to realize that's basically your brothers and sisters in there, and at the end of the day, it's about the recovery. It's not about me with my feelings hurt or somebody else with their feelings hurt. And my sponsor always tells me, never let somebody run you out of an AA meeting. You know what I mean? Like, Don't go home and pout because you're mad at somebody in there. And, we're not all going to always get along splendidly, and we probably would get on people's nerves occasionally, and personalities don't always match up. But you can still love that person and not really, on a personal level, be that involved with them. And that's what I've learned in here too. It's like, hey man, love you, shake your hand and rock on, So, and if they need me and call me, I'll go help them. But we don't have a running conversation or a relationship, But yeah, I mean, I've learned how to handle those kind of things in this program that I didn't learn out in the world, as my guys say. So,
and in a lot of us, especially me, I'm gonna tell you, whenever I got into the rooms, being autonomous, okay, was almost like it did. My mother took care of a lot of stuff for me, right? Or my ex-wife took care of a lot of stuff for me. I didn't do anything for myself. I always had somebody to take care of all that stuff, and then you run them all off, or hurt them or whatever it is, and then you're left and you're like, oh no, what do I do? I got to do my own, But becoming autonomous actually helped me as an individual, right? It would prepare me for the life I live now.
I agree.
And being autonomous does help, and we talk about blame in the rooms of AA, and it's a word we got to take out of our mouth. But I think sometimes whenever I wasn't autonomous, anything that went wrong, I always had somebody to blame other than myself, regardless of what it was. Yeah.
It's funny too, in that situation that I was in, we had our sponsors there, and I thought this would be a thing of me and the guy and the two sponsors. The two old timers were the ones that went to town. They just set the whole deal. I mean, the rest of us, yes, sir. Okay. Yes, sir. All four of us. And they were spot on, right on the money, didn't pull any punches. And it was great. It was great. It was great to be a part of that and just see healthy work it out,
Yeah.
So, yeah. But anyway.
The tradition is very important because we're talking about a macro level that affects and impacts the group as a whole. But for me, per se, it taught me how to be a little bit more free, how to handle things on my own, and to do things and to actually seek out the right way to do things instead of doing it the wrong way.
Yeah.
What to engage, what not to engage, how to be more self-sufficient, self-reliant. And I think that's the overarching theme of it, is to also build that internally within yourself so you can kind of mimic what the group does. It helps you live a little better.
And be responsible for your own recovery.
Yeah.
And to carry that a step further, you go into business meetings. There can be some hurt feelings in there. There can be some things that get shot down, and you have to work through that as a group too. And you're trying to take care of the business of your group, and so you're not always going to agree. And a matter of fact, a lot of times you're not. If you get 25 alcoholics in a room and start voting on stuff, you're going to have opinions, a lot of opinions. And it's cool to be able to work through that too when you have people that maybe feel a certain way or whatever it might be. And you can look at them and go, I love you. It don't got nothing to do with your opinion on this. We can have different opinions, but still be cool and do our thing. So
you have the right to be wrong.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
It's very important too, because now it trickles back to what you just discussed, drama.
Yeah, sure.
Because if you don't handle it appropriately, then that arises. So it makes sense.
That's where I was going with it. That's where I was going with it. Drama is they say fear is the evil and corroding thread, but drama is an evil and corroding thread that affects groups as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, it just affects groups as a whole. I witnessed firsthand couple months, maybe a month ago at a meeting, and a couple guys, nobody here, no listener that we have here is going to know much about them, and I'm definitely not going to mention any names, but there was an altercation, right? Not a physical altercation, but there was a verbal altercation in a meeting that got a little heated, and one thing, my hats off to that chairperson, they shut that stuff down. I'm sharing a meeting, just boom. But then after the meeting, I watched these two guys, and we're talking about old timers. We ain't talking about newcomers, right? These are old guys, man. And I watched them after the meeting go up to each other, and I heard one with my own ears say, "You know what? I was wrong. You were right. I apologize." And I mean,
awesome.
nip that drama in the bud, right there, right?
That's so dope what you just said, though, because that's if it wasn't for the rooms and what we saw within the rooms and learned, and that wouldn't have happened. People would have been fighting, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember something happened. Somebody got mad at me earlier in recovery, maybe 2 or 3, 5 years, somewhere in there, and it was over. I made a joke. And it wasn't a bad joke or a hurtful joke, but apparently it pissed this person off. And I said, hey, I apologize. I'll stay in my lane. I was out of my lane, and later on they made the same. That person made the comment, well, is this how mature people settle things? And I'm like, well, I don't know because I'm not mature.
Exactly.
But it's how we're gonna settle it because I ain't dealing with this shit for the rest of my life. We're gonna take care of it right here.
Yeah. I think that's it too. Is the drama? In that word tends to be drawn out. This big saga of shit, and in AA, we want to put that to bed, and we want to go, okay, here's the problem. Sit with that person, fix it. Well, then you don't have drama because if you both approach it that way and you put it to bed, right or wrong, you don't have this big drug out ongoing thing. And that's what drives me nuts. It just drives me nuts. It's like, put it to bed. Let's go. It's over with. So
nobody wants to 10th step on that one, right? Nobody's like,
Exactly.
who's going to 10th step first?
yeah,
But what you said,
do
people, it's automatically happening though, especially with those two dudes you was talking after the meeting. They saw they're wrong and they immediately, had an impact on it to change it. So,
And two brand new people were in that meeting, right?
Yeah,
Imagine what they thought when they seen these two people after that heated discussion. It was pretty heated.
it goes back to what you said again, the drama that has the potential to throw people off.
Oh, yeah.
And not even accept the program.
yeah,
So we're allowed to be human.
Yeah.
absolutely.
We just have a program to deal with our humanness.
There you go.
That makes sense because I don't know about anybody else, but I'm a very flawed human.
Yeah. We have a solution,
yes.
which is a lot
If we
nicer
ch-
than
if we choose
fists
to use it.
and knives. Oh, sorry. Did I say that?
There's no weapons involved.
Oh, okay.
Jill's on another level, guys.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I still have problems with that, man, because I'll be wanting to pop off on people sometimes. It happens.
I was talking about old timers. I was in a meeting one time, and I'll say Joe B, who's got 8 million years of sobriety. He was sitting in a corner,
7.5. He's going on 8.
But one of my favorite people ever, and a true old timer, and a young lady had come in very new and was doing the drama thing and kind of chattering about someone else before the meeting started. And she turned and looked at Joe and said, "Can you believe that?" or whatever. And Mr. Joe said, "You know what I do? I just try to mind my own fucking business." And then he just went on. And I went, "That's my
Nice.
guy right there."
Nice
Shut
shut.
that down. And
Yep.
that girl was like, and just went on. And I went, "That's how you handle that immediately." And I was just like, "That's awesome." So, yeah, that's kind of, that's a lot of it is just minding our own business. And sometimes
Well, and I thought about that on the drive over here. I did. I thought about the whole minding my own. A lot of we hear it in a lot of the reasons why we find ourselves in the situations we're in is because we don't mind our own business.
Here's another one for you. Here's another scenario on this. I had a situation with a guy. Guy was saying some things that were not true by any means, stretch of the imagination. Were not true. He continued to do it. It was really irritating me. Went to my sponsor. This is where sponsors, you go back to that. Went to my sponsor and said, "Man, this is pissing me off. Like there's no need in this." And I said, "What do I need to do about it?" And I'm like, "I need to confront this guy. I need to, I'm ready to do all this stuff." And he said, "Did you do it?" And I said, "No, I didn't do anything," he said. And he goes, "Then let it go. You don't have to even acknowledge it. Just let it go." And I was like, "No, that's not going to happen. Like we're going to settle this,
Right. Ego is
And
like,
he goes,
must.
"Wait a minute." He goes, and basically he said, "An idiot is running his mouth and you're worried about what comes out of his mouth. You're trying to control what comes out of an idiot's mouth." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess I am." And
Yeah.
he goes, "You can't control that. So go behind the building today and settle it. Tomorrow he's going to be saying something else. You're going to have to, And I went, "That's very true." And he goes, "If your character's where it needs to be, then you let it go." He said, "The people are going to believe it, and the ones that ain't. And he said, "It doesn't matter." And we get into that, and fast forward 3 weeks, he gets into a situation like that. The only time as a sponsor he's ever asked my opinion on something, he calls me. He had a similar situation with a person. He's upset. He's upset. He goes, I'm just going to ask you, what would you do? And I repeated verbatim what he had told me 3 weeks before to him. Yeah. And I said, you got to let it go. If you didn't, you know. Nice. And he goes, I'm finally wearing off on you after 5 years. And but it's the truth, you know.
Well, I mean, and you also get the side of that where there's the somebody said something and they didn't say it, and then nobody wants to address it, and then when it does get addressed, you find out something completely different, and then so we've had some drama there because of unnecessary. Some middleman. How about that? We just middleman come in there. Hey, I heard. I heard. Mm-hmm. Did you hear it with your own ear? Oh no, I was, saw it on Facebook.
Somebody wrote it on the bathroom wall at the club. That's how they heard about it. So yeah, that middleman stuff, I don't like that either. But thankfully, don't have too much of that. No, I've learned to just kind of let it roll off my back for the most part. It's a very select, small circle of people that I do care what they think about me as far as the way I do things, but it's very, very small. And the outside of that circle, they can say whatever they want to say. It has no effect. And the people that have been there and supported me and that I want to support them, that's all I care about. So, but yeah.
So anonymity.
Mm-hmm.
It's an $11 word. What do you think about that? What do you think about anonymity, man?
I think it's great. I think that it allows people the opportunity to come in and get their stuff together and in a private way. And I think that's awesome. And I think that's great about this program. I read something about Eminem, the rapper, right? He tried to go to AA meetings. Okay? They wouldn't leave him alone.
I'm sure.
Wouldn't leave him alone.
I've seen famous people at meetings.
I have too, but I read an article about this, but he said I couldn't go to a meeting, and he was just going to AA meetings like us. So he had to do different things because publicly, and they should have left the guy alone. And I just remember thinking, man, if he came in the Koala Club,
I have never had that problem.
Nobody gives a shit if I'm in there. They're like, hey, there's a homeless guy,
That's why I don't let my tour bus park in the parking lot of these meetings.
But I think it's great. I think it's also a personal choice. I mean, we come on here and we do this and we're out in our area doing a lot of things, and we put ourselves out there. And me personally, everybody, and this was my thing with my life to get it back together. Everybody around me knows my story. So there's an accountability for everyone in my life, from a little nephew to my brother to whoever, there's no anonymity for me. It's we're battling this every day, and I will till I die.
Yeah. So, and what's great about that, that's your choice.
That's right. But where that also works very well is being out in public and being in there and having random things come up, recovery or sobriety wise, and being able to just right there on the spot. It doesn't matter to me who's standing there. I don't care. I'll tell you where I'm at, what I'm doing. And if it helps somebody else, I'm all for it. And it doesn't matter. I think personally it works better for me. I know I've heard of people that have job situations where it's not best to probably put that out there, and that's great, man. And that's what we honor. I never do that with anyone else. But at the same time, it works better for me the way I do it,
Yeah. And I'm right there with you.
What about you, Cal?
Well, I kind of operate under the notion, just like if I'm out in public and I see someone who's struggling and I'm reaching out a helping hand, I'm not trying to, video myself doing it or have somebody, hey, look at what I'm doing. It's the same thing. If I remain anonymous, then, if I do something and I don't let them know, then it's just as good as if you do let them know. I don't like seeing that, but I also appreciate it. I think too, a lot of people, when it comes to anonymity, they have the tendency to couple it together with shame or guilt because of the path that you've chosen now.
Yeah.
I'm shameful of this, and I think I was like that too at first because of the profession that I held. I was in the military, and then the stigma that surrounds it, that you can't control. And I think that's where people they get that word mixed up with anonymity, and I think it sheds a negative light on this when in fact it's not negative at all. And it makes people fail to get out there and be like, look, I was once where you're at, but look at what can happen, if you decide to take this lifestyle, take it as your own. So I think that's the confusing aspect of it. I love it, but I also think there's a gray area which we haven't figured out.
Yeah. And I just, at the end of the day, when in doubt, say nothing, and I've been in Walmart and somebody's come up to me and said hi, and I'm with other people that don't know any, and I just, hey, how you doing? And we go on. I don't say anything. And if they choose to bring it up, that's fine. Nobody's ever, my whole life's been a shit show, a public shit show. So it doesn't, I got nothing to hide, So, yeah, on my end, but I don't really care. I mean, but, that's just kind of a thing I stick with,
Yeah.
to the other people's stuff,
I really like what Cal had to say. That gray area that we still, I never was too concerned about who knew, because to be honest, most people knew, right? Even the people that matter in my life anyway, they knew, whether it would be grandmas, grandfathers, or whoever, but they knew I had a drinking problem. I mean, I even had cousins that would reach out to my ex-wife and say, hey, stuff about I heard Mike had a drinking problem or something, and I'm not one of those guys that had a lot to do with my cousins growing up. I just didn't, we just didn't mesh, but or didn't hang out together. But I did have people reach out, so it scattered that far. I would imagine the people that didn't matter probably knew as well too. So that part did not really bother me. And then when I do go to AA, I want to not do anything with anybody and just get into a program because anything outside of AA really and truly was a risk at my sobriety at that time, right? Once I got sober, I learned how important anonymity was. And of course, this is a safe place and you can say whatever you want to in the rooms and all of that stuff you hear coming through, which is the reason why we had these two words in this is because I didn't know the difference in the two when I got here. That's why we talked about autonomy and anonymity. But as it went on, I would find out, I didn't even know people's last names that I'd been friends with for years. I mean, I'd been, and Matt, I knew you we've been doing this podcast since May. So I've known you for at least 5 years. And in May...
We were in jail together too, I think.
Well, yeah. Yeah. But they called him Sister. I don't know.
It makes sense.
I mean, I guess that was a play on his last name. And he got more ramen than anybody.
Any port in a storm.
Yeah, well, but he did have toilet paper. But I didn't know Matt's last name until he told me.
I don't even know how to say it.
I don't know any of you.
And Matt, we're pretty close.
Really nor do I care.
But you, Cal, you've got our numbers. You can get a hold of us.
Yeah.
But let's just say that brand new guy, let's just say a brand new military guy came in, right? And we see that a lot. But we see one come in and Cal shares and he talks about his military service and he talks about his years of recovery. And the guy's like, that's the guy I need to associate with, but he's scared to approach you after the meeting. He has no way of even looking you up on Facebook. He don't have any idea what your last name is, I mean, I guess Cal's kind of a unique name because it's 3 letters, but you see where I'm going with that,
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Bob talks about this I believe in Dr. Bob and the Good Old Timers, where they were traveling back and forth from Akron to New York, and they were going to stop, and they were going to go to a meeting, and they had a flat tire, and they needed help. They didn't have a jack, so they get out, and they go to a payphone. The phone books used to hang from a payphone back in the day, and they realized they didn't know anybody's last name. at the meeting they were going to. Like they had, and Dr. Bob even said, hey, we're taking this, just a bit too far.
Yeah.
People who need to get a hold of us can't get a hold of us. Right. According by tradition, remaining anonymous is at the level of press, radio, and films. Right. This would be considered radio, I guess, or press. But that's came from another incident that happened earlier in our AA's cycle of life, or getting to our point we're at now. We had a professional baseball catcher who had recovery and sang it to the multitudes of how great it was, and then he relapsed, and it made a negative impact. So that was about the time that tradition came about. Is what happened. He pitched. I believe he was a catcher for the
St. Louis.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I get that, man, but it has some negative connotations associated with it. When you see somebody at that level relapse, they'd be like, "Oh, does this really work?" But I think the positives outweigh.
Yeah,
I really do. Like, just because there's so many examples of people recovering and living life in sobriety, and people still want that no matter what, And lastly, I'll say is the reason I have an issue with that too, when you said media, radio, and
press, radio.
All right, so the media, all right, if we can, all right, let's say entertainment in general, like they cover AA in almost every other series. Every other movie, there's something in regards to it, some type of abuse of addiction. And it's pushed so much for people to do the negative thing. Why not push some of this? To counter, to balance that.
I feel like we're seeing more and more of it.
Yeah. And then sometimes it's the way it's presented is kind of messed up. But I guess you can't really directly, do exactly what we do. But why not push this more? Why not, when there's so much negative stuff being pushed every day,
and I think
people in that direction,
press and radio and all that good stuff, man. I mean, you can this podcast, you can go on YouTube now, and it's awesome. You can go on YouTube or Spotify or whatever. You can pull up all kind of stuff to listen to on recovery and mental health and anything else you want to. But I think that's great. I think it's a great resource for people, especially early on. But I still ride down the road and just listen to random stuff and it helps me to, I'm not always around AA people. We're able to go to a meeting or whatever it might be, and I'll pop something in and listen to it for a few hours. I think it's great. And I think we have to be careful in that gray area of, getting too specific on things, but for the most part, I think it's awesome.
And if you can, if some, because we have some really famous people, in AA, like from contemporary modern folks that are putting out stuff right now, and celebrities that are doing things right now, to people way in the past.
Yeah,
we have that, and we don't really we hear them talk about their sobriety. Right, I've seen them give speeches on my sobriety and this, but you never see them talk about AA.
Right.
And whether tradition. Or not that's right. And man, talk about keep guarding the tradition, but I think if I'm someone who is, I could look at certain people that I know have found recovery through AA that are their situation, just the fact, their lifestyle, what they're around all the time, the living on the road and the constant flow of stuff in front of them, and the ego, the ego alone of having, 12 to 30,000 people screaming at you and for you, on a regular basis. I've never had over 10, so I can imagine once you get over 10, the ego level just really, Matt, you can tell us about that in a little while.
Run rampant. Okay.
But hey, I got sober, and I guess if you get sober and it works, however you do it, it works. And hopefully you can stay sober, right? But I know that so that's that. What we just talked about is the anonymity on the part of our personal anonymity. Okay, so let's talk about the other anonymity, right? And that is helping people without anybody knowing we did it. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
That's kind
yes,
of like
sir.
what I discussed.
Yeah.
If I see somebody out there,
remaining completely anonymous and nobody has any clue. You find it tough, Matt, when you do that?
Yeah, I like to have cameras following me around basically my whole life, just filming everything, you know.
Truman Show.
No, man, I tell you what, that's the coolest thing in sobriety, I think, ever. That, and I guess this is selfish, man, because it makes me feel so much better. I hope it helps another person, but when I do what I'm supposed to do, nobody knows about it. And what's funny is every once in a while, years down the road, that's been the cool part, is somebody, I've had this a few times, and somebody come up and go, do you remember me? And I go, no. And they go, blah, 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 blah. And I go, oh, crap, that's awesome. Like, that's awesome. And I love that so many people played this little part in helping keep the wheels turning for me in sobriety. And it's just little bitty things that people didn't want anything out of that or expect anything out of it, but they jumped in to help me keep grinding towards this direction. And I love that I get to do that with other people and help, and if I can, and help them, you know, just move it along a few hours, you know, or whatever it might be. And they can look up one day and go, oh man, I got a little bit of time now and I'm getting my life back together. So, yeah, I think that's the coolest thing on the planet. Personally, but
yeah, I like to, you know, I guess it could be,
it's pure
selfish.
It's pure
because, you know, I like it. I like helping people, and or if I had the chance to helping people and then not, you know, nobody know I even did it. You know, I know I did it. You know, I can sit there, you know, in the bathtub and think about how great I am. You know, like
the bathtub. If
everybody only knew how great I was.
I got a call
can't tell nobody.
2 weeks ago from one of us with an issue. I'm not going to go into details because I just don't want to go into details, but had an issue, needed help, called for help. I call another guy in this program. This is not about me. This is about his little deal. This person that we were helping never knew he was there, never knew that he spent his own money to fix this problem, and took care of the problem tenfold from what the person asked us to do, left and went home, and this other person we helped has no idea this person was ever involved, and that's so awesome. Like, it's just awesome, man. And I looked at the guy, and I'm like, dude, you're unbelievable. And he just disappears. And it's like, that person never knew he was even there. So, yeah. But I love this program, man. There's good examples of people just doing that every single day. And, you know, it kind of keeps us going. So,
you know what's the best part about this facet of anonymity, man? Is I think human nature is to want people to notice what you're doing and to get attention. I mean, just look, I'm guilty of it. I post on Facebook. I want people to respond. I want people to like. You know, I want people to see it. You know, but I think that's the joy of the program over time, when you develop a relationship with a power of your choosing, who you can just leave everything to. You become more, I guess, content with knowing that that power knows that you did that instead of everybody else knowing. Do I still want to do things and people to see me? Yeah, but it's not as often as I wanted to before the program. I think that's what it brings to you as a person. And I think, like you said, it's the most gratifying feeling in the world, knowing that what you did took time out of your day to help somebody or inspire somebody, change that person's life forever, you know, and you don't need anybody else to know but you and whoever your higher power is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm surrounded by people that's kind of a way of life for them, and people not even in this program, but family and friends. And like, I got a small circle, but everybody in my circle, that's how they roll. That's just their mentality. And, you know, if I hang around that kind of stuff, it can't help but bring me up. And I'm like, Cal, I think everybody's got an ego, and it's just, you got to keep it to a minimum. You know, I don't think you ever get rid of ego, but at the same time, you know, I can tell when it's kind of in check and when it's running wild. So, you know,
let's talk about ego for a second.
Okay.
Do you think, and this is where we kind of get on to opinion, and I don't really do opinion very well, but do you think people are just born with an ego?
That's a good question.
Does it develop because of too much attention or because of lack of attention?
We got the id, the ego, and the superego.
Continue.
A moment of silence.
I'm listening to Jill. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, is it innate? Is it something that is learned? I definitely think that for sure it can be learned, but we are born basically to, survive, and that includes what? Yourself, right? And how I can do all these things to prolong my life. But I think society, friends, family, you name it, it is everywhere, and it can be picked up. And it's something that if you're taught how to control it or taught that it can be a huge problem, that it can just go wild.
Yeah, I think the ego becomes. I did a thing last night on the third step. And
so you did end up doing that.
Yeah. And the third step prayer, and like we have to be able to get out of God's way. I mean, that's where it runs wild, is when I'm wanting to put Matt ahead of, Matt gonna control the outcome. Matt's gonna dictate how that goes to get to that outcome. And so that's the fighting the ego with me, is going, I'm not God, and when I'm okay, yeah, I will have an ego. I'm convinced it's just not going to ever go away. But there are times when it's in really good shape and things are very smooth. But when it's not, it's because Matt's trying to take the reins and do it himself.
Yeah. If I'm in Jill's will, I'm not in God's will, and my will is fueled by ego, and I have to be very careful, because that has gotten me in so much trouble.
And I think ego is also, what's funny about ego is I take the ego and I'm like, I'm going to take care of all this. And then it's like, but wait, let's look at your track record of how you've done on your own. And it's just a shit show of disaster. And then we still think I should take over right now and just handle this, that's ego. It's just dumb. So
what I think about this, minus our higher power, I think it is something that is learned, and it kind of manifests itself on its own based on your cultural upbringing. Because you got ego, and I think that's a direct representation of how you view your self-worth and your self-esteem and all those other words that are, I guess $10 words. And I think it's based off of how you were raised. And I think specifically for myself, a person that came from a house that wasn't told, I love you, or this, that, and the other. I didn't receive that love. I saw a whole bunch of negativity. So it made me, therefore, always want to make myself look good, always want to prove to people that I'm worth this or worth that, and always wanted to be right no matter what, hence the word ego. So I think over time, that happens. It kind of, you don't mean for it to happen, but that ego kind of manifests itself more and more based off of your cultural upbringing and your house upbringing, whatever you wanted to define it as. That's what I think.
I agree with you, Cal. I mean,
Yeah.
What it is it's basically like a personality trait, part of your temperament. It's something that develops throughout your life.
A survival deal almost, like a coping deal.
Yeah.
Wow. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, because if you don't feel good, you want to make yourself feel good, and you rationalize. If you're not, like Al said, your parents, they, or whatever your upbringing was, that, and we all have been through stuff like that, off and on, but I never thought of that.
And think about it. It starts, as an infant, it's all about you. Getting your needs met for your diaper being changed, feeding and all of that. And that's where you learn manipulation. If I cry, I get this.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Where did I forget that life lesson?
I mean, but you do. I mean, I think that's crazy, and we have to come in here and figure out that something that we've used for so long, almost like a crutch, is we can't use that anymore. And that's that's really
especially when we get to the point it's harming us, and it's harming everybody around us.
Sure.
So I would have to say, like, if I compared myself to average average person I meet and talk to in AA, I was a spoiled brat, right? I mean, like, you know, I was a spoiled brat. And so I get on and be an adult, and I expect everybody just to conform to my wishes, and this is how it's going to be. And then that don't work out too well.
And then boo-hoo.
And then poor me. And then I actually get some stuff, and I do it on my own, and I want everybody to, hey, look at me, you know, and then big ass ego, you know, pops up.
Yep.
So yeah, I get it. Starting to get it anyway. So ego though, I can tell you this, from my own experience, I had to shed it. I had to shed some of it, because when it came to getting sober, I just didn't have any idea what to do. I had tried so hard on my own, and it just, nothing worked. Right. And I remember sitting and talking to myself, talk about ego, talking to myself about how I had did this and I had did that, but I couldn't stop drinking. And I can't figure out why I cannot stop drinking. When I can do all this other stuff by myself, how come I can't stop drinking? Right. And at some point, I just had to say, just, you know, take it.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
It's the ego, and it's false pride.
False pride. That's the word I was looking for.
I love that word.
Two words.
Z.
That one word though has such power on whether or not this program is going to work or not work.
Agreed.
And it goes back to, if you don't, I get it. Like we come into the program, we accept the steps and, you know, the traditions and the principles, and all the promises come to light. But if you don't handle that stuff that happened earlier on, you're never going to fully be recovered. You know, and I think that's one word you have to nip in the bud in order to really get the program. You know, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And it really helps. You know, getting the program, like Cal said, you're going to have to nip that in the bud. But when you start helping others, there's going to come a time where I don't know what I'm doing. And I need to reach out to someone, and I need to say, hey, I'm helping someone and I need help. And man, I'm going to tell you that for me anyway, that ego could take back over. My first sponsee was a super success. Guy named Phil. I mean, to my knowledge, he's still sober to this day. And he's got to have 11 years now, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, he just took off out of the bat. And I remember thinking, oh, this is going to be a breeze. I love it. No, this is, man, they make way too big of a
riot, dude.
They make way too big of a deal out of this, you know. But there's that ego, right? Look what I didn't have nothing to do with that cat getting sober. You know, I walked him through the steps, and I was there to talk to. You know, hey, you need a friend? You know, I'll give you some pointers. Let's take the alcohol out of the fridge. You know.
You were naive.
I was. But that's, you know, I mean, it worked out the way it was supposed to work out.
But
Yes.
but look at it this way too. When we talked about helping people without people knowing, and then some stuff you just have to, the people have to know, because it's that situation. It's not that you're choosing it. But I've had people all the time go, man, you're awesome. You're all, and I go, I'm not awesome. I owe people for doing it for me. Everybody's done it for me. I'm just repaying what they've done. It has nothing to do with me being awesome or any of that crap. And you can, when you get down the road, you're going to get to do this for somebody else. And that's what I expect you to do and that's what people that did it for me expected me to do, you know. And it's not an ego thing. It's just it's the right thing to do and to pay back what was given to me. So
I agree fully on that. You know, for a person that fought helping other people, because I couldn't get out of ego and thought it was just like I was the problem and I needed to be fixed the most. And eventually, when I finally did that after a couple of years, it actually got someone through the steps. It was the greatest feeling, which, you know, is a little bit like your ego is, but, you know, being stroked or whatever. But I think I learned for the first time that, like, I wasn't a complete idiot, that I could do something and I could help people, which eventually turned into my profession. And, you know, everything that we've talked about today is, you know, even like, not in autonomy, anonymity, all of that is definitely, you know, part of my life, and the fact that I use all of that to help other people because someone did that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I do it.
And it takes that. I looked at people that helped me, and just not even AA people, but just people in life. When I got out of treatment and trying to get back on my feet, so many people helped me, and it's not an ego. You'll check that ego real quick when you're helping somebody, and they're, oh, you're awesome. You go, no. You don't understand. You don't know where I was at, and still struggle, and people still help me. This is what we do, as a group, and it has nothing to do with ego, and I tell them, hell, you might be hauling me off to rehab one day. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds.
Well, that gives them something to look forward to.
Well, there you go. Hey, I was,
hopefully rehab for your shoulder surgery.
Well, I was headed that way when I got there. I can promise you.
Yeah, but it happens. We see it all the time.
It does. And it's no ego to it, man. We help each other and yeah, I've been in that situation too, and somebody that helped me have to turn around and get them back going.
Somebody falls off after many years of recovery. The worst thing we can do is sit and talk about why it happened. We need to get them help.
Yeah,
none of that matters. They've fallen off. Get help. Start over. Go move now.
And you're right on that, man, because we want to beat ourselves up. And when I've been in that situation with people that fell off, they want to rehash. Why? It doesn't matter, man. What we're going to do today.
It's going to talk about that in the 12 and 12 too. Whenever later we'll talk about it, but it talks about that reliving the glory days, right? Mm-hmm. And it talks about it in 12 and 12, and that's something that tends to get in the way of recovery. We just talked about ego. Let's just say I fell off the wagon. I got 12 years. Yes, my ego is going to be busted up, but nowhere near the damage that's going to be done to all kind of other stuff if I don't get some help, right? I mean, It's just got it. The most important thing is to not, and I've known people, and I can't sit here and think of one, but have 25 years of recovery total, right? And they may have went 3 months off the wagon out of 25 years, right? They always came back, right? I can only imagine the amount of damage that I would do in that length of time because it's generally not me. I mess up everything else for everybody else, right?
Right.
But the most important thing is we stay sober.
This is a great topic, man, because it makes you think of other things, and I think the foundational word for this is humility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not thinking less about yourself. It's thinking about yourself a little bit less, And
absolutely.
It's just, it's dope, man. I really appreciate you for this, man.
Oh man, we're glad you're here,
Glad
dude.
you're here, Cal.
Yes.
That's my partner in crime right here. We're all glad he's here. I can promise you.
Boy.
So.
And that brings us to the end of the meeting. And I do want to remind everybody, guys, we haven't gotten any emails in a while. So,
Rude.
yeah.
Sorry.
But I want to remind everybody that we are available on Apple Podcasts now, not just Spotify. So if you're on Apple Podcast, you go to podcast, you search The Grouch and the Brainstorm, will pop up, and then you can just follow it from there. And of course, we're still on Spotify. And you can reach us. Our voicemail is area code 817-988-2530. I love to get voicemails. Anytime you want to call in and leave a voicemail, we'll play it on the air for you. G&B Bossier, Bossier at gmail.com. That's G&B Bossier at gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram. My name is Mike Walston Jr.
Junior.
Yeah, I think my dad has our real first name on his, so you can't get them confused. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, you can always find us on and shoot me a message, shoot me a text, find out. I did hear from Larry and Judy want to be on the show.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
at least Larry does. Larry wants to be on the show.
Wow.
So I'm going to have to figure out a way to get him, he's on call some. So we got to figure out a coordinated time and hope he can make it. But anyway.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool. It's all going to be pretty cool. So anything else?
Yeah, by the way, we got to see a legend of the game yesterday, Phil. One of our first bonus interviews turned up at the club. He lives in Texas now, and
He was there again yesterday?
he was there. He was there
Friday night.
Friday night.
Okay.
Yeah, when you were there. when you were there. And yeah, it was good to see him. Good to see him. So
Yeah, me and Phil just happened to show. I hadn't seen Phil in 6 months. And we just happened to show up at the same meeting at the same time.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you know, and a weird thing, I've had that happen a couple times when I go back to Mandeville. I would go in and there'd be people who hadn't been there in, you know, a while and stopping in at the same time I stop in. You know, it's kind of, you know, it's just weird how the recovery community works, you know, and I love it. I love it.
Yep.
So, but this has been another great episode. Cal, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And from our crew here at Rule 62 Studios, we have been the Grouch and the Brainstorm.